so we can just kick it off now. Mr. Larry Johnson, how did you get into this business, the radio business?
Actually, I came to TSU back in the 60s, and my goal was to be an artist. And that's what I was always known as, an artist in high school. And so I got into art here, discovered that TSU really didn't specialize in what I wanted to do, and that was commercial art or graphic arts, and I transferred over to the University of Houston. I stayed in art until there was a confluence of things that happened. I was in a job after a couple of jobs, and I was bored. And a good friend of mine, Charles Porter, who was a theater buddy of mine, called me excitedly one day and said he was going to be the first outside reporter at Channel 13. And so we both rejoiced, and after a little calm, I said, well, who's going to replace you over at KCOH? And he said, I got just the person, you. And I said, I don't know anything about radio. He said, man, you can do this. You got the voice, you got the drama and personality. Give it a try. So I gave it a try.
Okay, that's nice. So I guess what are like some of the goals that you hit in the radio business? If you can
Goals. My goal was to make more money than I was making. That was my goal. I could say my goal was to become the next Walter Cronkite of, the Houston, Texas. I'm always trying to better myself as I was then, and trying to get better and advance. But there were some walls that I hit, both things that I couldn't control, and then things that I think were limiting. So anybody in this business of radio or TV always have to be a realist of their limitations. You can work hard to achieve more than what you have to reach your goals, but then you have to be a realist of how far you can get.
Okay.
So I think I've achieved some things along the way, but for me to, my goal was to become another, on one of the anchors of 60 Minutes, or have a show and be the male Oprah Winfrey. But I had limitations, so here I am.
That is very interesting. That is very interesting. What advice would you give to the younger generation that's taking like the same lane into radio and TV?
Well, I hear you say taking the same lane. My lane is very unique, as if you could see. I had a lot of. When I came out of high school, I had a couple of 2-year scholarships in art, but I was so poor, or my family was, and I was so. I don't have any brothers or sisters. And so I was so insecure about leaving to go to where my scholarships were that I was afraid to take those scholarships. And so I think they were both in New Orleans, one in New Orleans and another in Alabama or somewhere. So I just stayed here, and my parents paid my first year in school at TSU. But after that, I was always working full-time. And did for the rest of my college endeavors, and finally graduated after about 80 years of going part-time and got my degree.
Okay.
And so that mine is not the route that's normally taken, but for what I would, when I look back on what I did, it was through perseverance and the ability and also the desire and motivation to better myself and get a college degree. And I can attribute that just as I attribute getting into the media through Charles Porter, with a guy that I started in school with, whose name is Fred Braggs, he was a fellow art student of mine, not student, but he was a student in the class with me.
Major.
Yeah, majoring in art. And after I'd gotten into a radio years later, he ran into me somewhere and said, "Larry, did you ever get your degree?" And I said, "No." Because after I achieved what I needed to do in art, I didn't feel like I needed a degree. I was doing what I wanted to do. I was an art director. I'd become assistant advertising director at a couple of major corporations, only black in the place, I think. And he said, "Well, probably you could, since you're in radio now, you could change your major and test out." Sound easy. And so I came back and I tested out as much as they let me, without any problems. But I was still about, as I recall, about 18 hours short. So they just gave me the motivation to keep on in weekend college and get my degree. So again, it's not the path that one normally takes to get where they're going. And now, of course, after it's all in retrospect, I'm proud to have been voted into the Radio Hall of Fame in Texas.
Oh, congratulations.
So thank you. Along with Walter Cronkite and some other high-profile names maybe you guys don't even know, Milo Hamilton and Paul Berlin and a lot of other old people. But they're in the Radio Hall of Fame, so I'm very proud of that. Chuck Scott was one of my dear friends who helped me get there. He was one of my news directors. He was the news director at the TV station at Channel 39, and somehow I've forgotten how we hooked up, but I became, I think, the first black TV anchor. I have to put that in quotes because I wasn't full-time. As a matter of fact, I turned down the job to work full-time.
Really?
But I was the first black full-time, not full-time, part-time, because I worked only part-time anchor in Houston, Texas. And some trivia is that the first black face as a Houston anchor, I've forgotten their names, but they were I think they were around 10 years old and 12 years old, somewhere in an area. It was called News Before the Hour, and kids did it. And there was a little girl and a black guy. And if you wanted to say who were the first black anchors, you would have to say them.
Well, interesting story. Well, there you go. Wise words from Mr. Larry Johnson. My name is Kenneth Grant again. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man.